Hey y'all, this is Christin Baker, director, writer, and producer, and the new CEO of the streaming platform DivaBoxOffice.tv. You might know some of my movies. They're LGBTQ holiday rom-coms, Season of Love, I Hate New Year's, and Christmas at the Ranch. And I'm so excited about the one that's coming out this holiday season, Merry and Gay. Right now, I am working on my third LGBTQ thriller called Scare-B&B. I'm just super excited to talk about all things film, which is my favorite topic in the whole wide world.
Christin Baker, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thank you, Chris.
It is my pleasure, and I would love to give this audience a deeper dive on who is the amazing and singular Christin Baker. So I'm just going to read from this, and if you want to amend to this and add some new detail, add some deeper color, feel free.
Sure.
Christin Baker is an award-winning director and Emmy-nominated producer. She's been playing with video producing and storytelling since she was 13. After her family got her their first VHS camcorder, she started out directing music videos and SNL parodies, which sounds hilarious to me, with the neighborhood kids, and moved on to start her own digital distribution and production company. That's Tello Films. She's the co-founder of Tello Films, which focuses on stories for the lesbian and queer community. Tello is the first lesbian queer network to receive an Emmy nomination. The story series Sex and Execs has received a 2017 Emmy nomination for Austin Powers actress Mindy Sterling, Outstanding Actress in a Short Film Comedy Drama Series. In 2019, the series Riley Para, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, received 2 Emmy nominations for actresses Liz Vassy and Carolyn Rattray. Christin is also passionate about directing and was awarded Best Director for her work on Maybelle at the 2016 London Raindance Film Festival. Christin is a member of the Producers Guild of America, likewise, as well as the Television Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Christin just wrapped directing her 4th lesbian queer holiday rom-com, Merry and Gay, which I purchased earlier today, and I we'll talk more about that and want you as an audience to go do the same, support independent film, and is working on the second feature for her thriller franchise, Scare-B&B, called Scare-B&B Double Booking. That follows Christmas at the Ranch, I Hate New Year's, and Season of Love, which was the first Hallmark-esque lesbian queer holiday rom-com. I'm thrilled to be talking with you because there's a lot of different places and angles to go, in this conversation. Doing the research this week, we sort of discovered that you've sort of marched down every lane of independent film that likely exists and have experience to share with this audience about those things. But I'd love to take it back a little bit. And I did struggle to a degree, to the degree that one struggles to talk to amazing people about where to start this conversation. And I thought, if it's okay with you, we could start with Ruth, Granny Ruth, who is now 96 years old. And I wanted to talk about how her and your mother, Carolyn, who seem to be strong independent women, in their own right, influenced you and gave you the self-confidence to be an independent filmmaker, especially in this space, the LGBTQIA space.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing place to start first. And just thank you so much for calling out the strong women that I'm so lucky to, be part of their lineage. And so I think, on 2 different levels, I think the first one is both my granny and my mom are unbelievably creative people. They have always made something out of nothing. They have made the ordinary extraordinary, because my granny grew up in the Great Depression, and both my mom and my granny just didn't have a lot of money. So whenever they did something or wanted to try and do something amazing, they had to figure out with their limited resources how to do it. And I think that is the essence of indie film, is trying to make the movie look as amazing as possible with your very limited resources. You know, you're in there playing with the big dogs, right? Like you're in there with the Marvel movies, and you're in there with, the $50 million movies, and now the Netflixes and the Amazons who just have these incredibly deep pockets, and you're trying to do everything that you can with what limited resources you have. And that is the essence of my granny and my mom. And that is the lineage that I take from them, and not letting anyone or anything stop you, not letting limited resources stop you, and just kind of pursuing what it is that you want, and making people's lives better through whatever art it is that you choose. So yeah, that's what I get from them, and I just carry that with me into every production.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're right about your mom. She's an author, and I probably should. I don't know what this would mean to the audience, but I also have a great aunt, Ruth, that just turned 102 years old. So I think what we are discovering is, for longevity, put down the NAD plus, the metformin, and the rapamycin, and go with just naming your kid Ruth. Like, just name your kid Ruth, and they'll live to 100. That's the secret. There can't just be two Ruths in the same city that are like knocking down, triple digits in age here, or knocking on triple digits. So I think you've discovered the essence of longevity right there. Just, you got it, Chris. Name your kid Ruth. There's this guy that he used to be the oldest man in the world, Christin. And his name, I believe his last name was Overton. And he was a direct descendant of John Overton, but through slavery, because John Overton is a white guy and this guy was a black guy. And he was living in Texas, and they got him on there's a YouTube video, and I'll try to get Elise to put this in the show notes so people can link out to it. And I'll send it to you, Christin, directly. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a short little documentary piece. And he was just talking about his secret to longevity is having a little bit of coffee every day, a little bit of whiskey, and having something to do. Wow. So just like you have to be able to wake up and have something to do. Yes, I love it. Chris, let me just also jump in here and tell you that my granny has a happy hour drink with Kentucky Gentleman whiskey every night at 5:30. So I think there's also something to the whiskey and the happy hour drink. She doesn't miss it. She has a very specific thing. And so my mom and I have decided to have happy hours as well, because I'm like, if Granny Ruth does it, let's do. And this Overton dude, he was like, whiskey, like, there's something there too. Imagine being 112 years old as a black man in America. Ooh, so the whiskey had to be doing something. Had to be doing something, because amen to whiskey. Amen to whiskey. Yeah. I have there. It's like anything else. Like the medicine, the dose makes the medicine. Yeah. If you have 10 glasses of whiskey at night, you're going to have an early death. If you have one sip, it might actually kill off something in your body that shouldn't be there. It's medicinal. Yeah. Right. We know alcohol kills stuff. So there could be, that's like the most dumb thing I've probably said out loud, but maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something to it. I think there is. Listen, this has turned into a wellness podcast. So there you go. Yeah, why not? Why not? There are no rules. That's why I love podcasting. No rule. That's right. You grew up. Now, this was interesting. You grew up in a YMCA household. I did. Yeah, and I'm sure for this global audience, I mean, I think they're going to know what YMCA is. I don't think I have to describe too much. It's a Young Men's Christian Association. It's a great organization. I have a connection to it through my own children. Like my daughter was a camp counselor at Widgewagon for, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years. So,
incredible.
Yeah, I personally love it. And I am curious what is it like growing up in a YMCA household? And what I mean by that is your father has a building named after him. He did a raise and was able to have funding and raise funding for YMCA in the multiples of millions of dollars.
He's got two. Yeah, he's got two named after him, Chris.
Right. Two. So this is not just, I wanted to clarify that, like, for those listening, she didn't just have a YMCA membership.
Right.
Our family's on the inside of this, making things tick. So I'm wondering, how did that work prepare you for the independent film industry? Mm-hmm. And what was it like growing up in a household like that? Because I think there's some other connections down the line we're going to get to regarding this.
Sure. Yeah. So what it did a couple of things. Number one, there's, in my mind, being able to go to summer camp every year, we were really lucky to be able to experience summer camp, day camp. We were running around YMCAs, learning to swim, playing sports in the after school program. And, all the staff knew who we were. So we had, talk about it takes a village. We were being raised by camp counselors and staff members, and they would, come over to the house. We would have parties and, our Christmas parties and holiday parties and everything. We always just had a big Y family. The other thing it does is it has afforded us to be able to, the YMCA, it being an international organization, we would be hosting people from the YMCA that's in Kenya, the YMCA that's in Mexico, YMCA that's in Germany. So we would have people coming in from all across the world who would stay with us because they wanted to experience the American YMCA. And then I was able to go over to Germany. I was able to go to Hong Kong, Africa, through the YMCA to do visits, to do exchanges. So it really broadened. You don't make a ton of money in nonprofit, right? Like we were very comfortable growing up, but we were by no means, could we have ever afforded like being able to go to Germany for 2 months if it wasn't for, I was a camp counselor, at a YMCA program and we had places to stay. And so we were really lucky to be able to do different things like that. So I think it broadened my understanding of the world, which I think anytime you're doing storytelling, understanding different perspectives, understanding, how different people live and the different work that they do is critical. And it was just a very loving household. And I think that helped, in filmmaking and especially indie filmmaking, you take a lot of risks and you take a lot of chances and you kind of have to leap out there sometimes and trust your gut. And I think because I grew up in such a positive and affirming environment, like the YMCA, it gave me the kind of strength and courage of character to feel okay if I failed, to not feel like my world would end or, or I wouldn't be loved or my value was based on success. So, I think it instilled in me a lot of self-confidence and gave me wonderful experiences that I wouldn't have had if I didn't grow up in the Y family.
You have been all around the world, and in film, so much of what makes a film outpunch its budget is location and set design. Yeah. For all the places you've been around the world, if you had to pick one, where would you shoot your next film if it wasn't here in the States? Just of all the places you've been.
I know. I'm kind of cheating a little bit because I'm going to be in London and Oxford at the beginning of December scouting for a movie. So I absolutely love London. I love Oxford. So I am going to be shooting there next. I absolutely love Italy and the Amalfi Coast, which is like Positano, Sorrento, Amalfi, Capri. I would love to shoot something in that area. Or really anywhere in Italy. So I would, for production value, I think Italy is just stunning. So I'd love to shoot something there.
Yeah, I would think the Amalfi Coast, along with Greece, are perfect rom-com settings. It allows the audience to escape and feel like they're in another place, and then 100%. Sort of fall in love with the characters falling in love in this beautiful place. You know?
Oh yeah, the backdrop is just stunning. Yeah, I think Greece is another great spot too. I agree. But yeah, I love the Amalfi Coast so much.
Right. You know, you don't necessarily want Manchester by the Sea if you're telling a rom-com. You kind of like, there's a benefit to doing it. There is a phrase in filmmaking and in art in general: you can be safe or you can be great. And I don't know if you agree with that or not. You just mentioned taking risks. Do you? What are your feelings on that quote?
Oh yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that quote. I would definitely agree with that quote. I think safety can be very boring. You know, anytime. In fact, I'll just use the example of Marion Day, which you'll be able to see. That script, I think one of the reasons that it's great, we have the first non-binary character and non-binary actor being in a holiday rom-com. And I didn't have to do that. I could have played it safe and just been also kind of edgy and been like, well, these are, two female characters. But I looked at this as an opportunity to really lift up some voices in the community that are underrepresented. And that is definitely not playing it safe, because I thought non-binary, Hallmark's not going to look at this. Lifetime's not going to look at this. There's just two conservative areas that anytime you use a they, them pronoun, they're barely able to get, LGBTQ in there. And I knew I was going to be alienating potentially, but I wanted to make it a greater movie than if I hadn't chosen that. So yeah, I'm always trying to buck safety, and I think it makes a difference.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I've always thought the irony of that, and this goes beyond Lifetime and Hallmark, so I'm not just calling them out. But I think the irony of that is, since the beginning of time, we have sort of made this ridiculous agreement with our own logic that says, I know that the performers I'm watching in my TV show or my favorite movie some of them are going to be gay. Right. But as long as they don't tell me, I'm okay with it. It's this weird thing where like you can put on the reality glasses, and then you see things as they are, but you're allowed to take them off so you can see things as you want to see them. But what might be interesting is if you had those reality glasses and you couldn't remove them. So everywhere you went, you saw things as they are. And it might be an interesting sort of way to insert sci-fi into your life that's actually reality. So I've just always thought that was really funny. I mean, from the beginning of time, and then before it was even an LGBTQ thing, it was a Jew thing, right? Like Jewish people were having to change their names.
Yep.
Like sort of the birth of the pseudonym in a way. I mean, not officially. I mean, authors have been doing that since the beginning of time, but in the movie business, that's where it came from. But I think somewhere people knew, hey, that person's a Jewish person. They knew that, but as long as they didn't tell you that through their last name or through their behavior on screen, we were okay with it. And it's a weird choice we make as an audience, and as a reflection of that, corporate America behaves in kind because they're interested in green, which we're interested in too as filmmakers.
Absolutely.
Anyway, off my soapbox. What I am curious about this. So you went to college at MTSU, and then you also followed that up with Springfield College. And it's fascinating to me what you can learn about a thing in college versus what you learn in practical behavior and practice. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. When we decided to be in the film business, and we have 3 feature films, all in worldwide distribution, some short films, comedy specials. When we decided to be in film, we actually, at the genesis, Christin, had a decision to make. We were going to either spend a bunch of money and go to film school or give filmmakers a bunch of money and then be on set with them. And we chose the latter. We chose to invest in films and be on set and learn that way. And I think it's been a much wiser decision for a variety of reasons I won't go into here. So with that as the context, Christin, what were some of the things you learned in school, technically and practically, as opposed to what you could only learn on set?
Yeah. So, yeah, you learn kind of in school, you sit and you learn all the rules, right? Here's what a wide is. You learn the names of things. Here's what a close-up is. You can't cross the line, kind of the, like you said, like the technical aspects. Here's how you...
What does can't cross the line mean?
It's the perspective of the camera. So it's like, it's like you can't go from one angle to an angle that messes with the perspective, that like would make someone standing in a completely different spot because the camera's in a different place.
Right.
And so it's like so that's crossing the line. I'm not great at it, but my DP knows it really, really well. But they teach you that. So they're like, when you go and like you go to someone's hand, you can be on one side of the hand or on the other side of the hand. One side of the hand is the correct perspective. The other side of the hand is the incorrect perspective. It's like that kind of thing based on where the person is standing. So yeah, you learn those technical things. And then maybe they let you play around with the equipment. So they teach you how to turn the very expensive camera on and how to change a lens. And like, maybe you get to do that, or maybe you get to play on the editor. Like if they have an Avid, you might be able to touch it or sit in a class where they touch it,
right.
And then you learn why the great movies are great. Like here's what they did with this perspective and look how they did this with storytelling and spatially. And, so I think you can get a good theoretical view of different things. But, I remember we had some college kids on Christmas at the ranch, and they went to a school in Nashville for film. And they said, we learned more in the 2 weeks on this movie than we did in, the 6 months that we've had in our school. Because we were making them run around and they were understanding why this, why the bounce is placed here and what the flags do. And it's just really hard to teach when you're sitting in a classroom, so I did learn a lot of things. I learned nonlinear editing. I got to play around on those machines. And then I actually had a TV show because we had a cable access channel. And I ended up creating a TV show that was like a Entertainment Tonight kind of movie review thing. And so I learned how to work with a team on that. But I mean, I was lucky that I kind of busted out of the classroom and did some practical things.
So you wouldn't say that one is an advantage over the other, just that you kind of need both?
I think it depends on the kind of learner you are, right? Like, I think what school can do is if you're not someone who's super disciplined or super focused, which, it just depends on the kind of learner you are. Some people do really well sitting in a classroom and that's how they learn and that's how they understand things. And then they go out into the world and they do it. Some people can't sit and learn in a classroom. They need to be out there experiential learners. So I think it really I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I would say, what kind of learner are you? And how do you want to learn?
Right.
And where do you want, if you had college money, where do you want to put it? Because I do think there are, as I've taught in, as an adjunct in some film schools, and I would like to think that the teaching that I did was helpful, to kids, but But I also know that there's some kids that really got a lot out of it. And there are some kids who just needed to be on that set and run around with a camera and understand how to do things. So yeah, I would say, what kind of learner are you? And that's the environment you should put yourself in.
It's a great point. Really great point. And thank you for sharing that opinion. I want to hop into Tello Films. Why Tello Films? Like, why is that the name? And how did you get it off the ground? And feel free to talk about your co-founder and how you two split responsibilities.
Yeah. So Tello stands for Television Online.
Oh,
that's why.
Duh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No worries. And I, you know, my co-founder and I, who she's no longer involved with the company.
Okay.
Also felt like it was a very, like, it was so close to hello that it also had like a really, like a positive, just the way you say it, you know, like, hello, Tello. And so we kind of liked the way it sounded and you know, as we spoke it, you know, I was at my job and I started thinking about getting back into filmmaking. And I thought, you know, there's all these streaming companies starting and none of them are really focused on anything niche. And it was when YouTube was like really starting to pop. And so, you know, again, I don't know why I thought it would be a great idea to start a streaming service as a, you know, a plucky little lesbian in Chicago, Illinois. But my co-founder, whose name is Nicole Valentine, and I just thought, let's make the lesbian YouTube. And I was like, cool. Do you know how to code? She was like, nope. I was like, well, we better find someone. And so, but it was an idea that wouldn't let go of me. And I don't know if you've ever had those ideas, but there are certain ideas that have come into my life and into my world. And it's like, it will not leave you alone. Some stories are like that. Some scripts are like, you know, some scripts are like that and some ideas. And this was an idea that would not let me go. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm supposed to start a streaming service. So it was originally going to be like the lesbian YouTube. And so we found someone, I went out and raised some angel investor money from some friends and family and got just enough to find like an indie guy who was like willing to build the site for us. I mean, the site went through like 5 different iterations before it ended up to where it is now. Because early in those days, now you can start a stream. Anyone can start a streaming service. If you have just a little bit of money, there's so many out there that are turnkey, and then you can have apps. Well, there were kind of apps at the time, but nothing like now. Right. So we really had to figure out everything. And finally, you know, we went through 2 different developers and then ended up on someone who still works with me today. And then, so Nicole and I, in the original iteration of Tello, I knew we needed to have original content that would differentiate us from the other streaming platforms, which were also really popping up all over the place. So we would do interviews with people who were either like in the entertainment industry who were lesbians or people who had played lesbians who were very popular. So we'd fly out to LA or fly out to New York, and Nicole was the on-camera person. So she would do the interviews with people, and I was the camera person and the editor. So I would edit the videos and we'd post them online. And then eventually it was a free service. And after about a year and a half, you know, I kept my full-time job. She kept her full-time job. So we did this on the side. Eventually it was like, we need to charge for this. Like, we're going to have to charge for this. So we need to figure out how to have bigger original content, not just interviews. And I ended up partnering with a filmmaker named Nancy Lee Myatt, who was a showrunner on some LGBTQ projects. And she had a script called Cowgirl Up. And I took our last pennies and I said, we're going to have to do this. And this is the way we're going to, like, you know, and we're going to have to put up a paywall, because we weren't making any money on advertising revenue. And neither was anyone else at the time. It was like, at that time, there was the .com bubble burst as it relates to like media. This was 2010, 2011.
Okay, yeah, so right after the 2008 crash.
Yeah, yes. So, and people were like, oh, no one's going to pay for content. No one's paying for content. Make your things 30 seconds. Well, we never did that. And so we just knew that we needed to have as much original content as possible. I remember literally doing the math, and I was like, if I get 10 lesbians to pay me $3.99, I will make more money than on Google Ads than I ever could. Because we just we couldn't get the volume, we couldn't get the number of people. So we went into production on a show called Cowgirl Up. We started charging, and that's kind of how we continued to survive. And then eventually, Nicole and I kind of parted ways, and I had owned the company outright. And I've kind of gone through different iterations of creative partners, just, depending on where I was physically in the world and where I was creatively. So I've been really lucky that, I've partnered with some really fantastic people on my filmmaking journey who've come in to, tell great stories.
How does the system of companies you have work? Like, what is the place for Tello versus Baker Productions versus Diva? Versus
Great
Diva
question.
Box
I know
TV.
there's a lot. Yeah.
So can you talk about the infrastructure there and how we can sort of patronize each one?
Yes. So Tello I co-founded, and then in 2018 I brought in some business partners, and they own the majority of the company. Mm-hmm. And so right now I have stepped away from the day-to-day operations of Tello. I'm still an owner, but because of the way the company is structured, they took over operationally, kind of running and managing things. Mm-hmm. And then in kind of moving away from that, I had someone approach me about relaunching Diva Box Office. So Diva Box Office was a UK-based streaming platform that was still lesbian-focused. That was a TVOD, just a rent or buy. And they had UK-focused projects on there. And when was telling some friends about, kind of the transition that I was making away from Tello. Mm-hmm. And they said, do you want to take over Diva Box Office and launch it and just run with it? We'll license the name to you. And so I'm sort of partnered with Diva Media Group, which runs Diva Magazine, which is a UK-based lesbian, queer, female magazine. And they do Lesbian Visibility Week. They do the Diva Awards. They're super involved in the UK, and they're wanting to move into the US market now. And so this was a great way for them to move into the US market and get the Diva name, a different vertical streaming. And it was a great way for me to be able to go, I'd love to pivot and kind of do what I do for divaboxoffice.tv, what I did for Tello. And so A Baker Production is my production company. So I used to produce under Tello, and everything was owned by Tello. So there's a lot of original content on Tello that's under the Tello banner and produced by them. And so when I started making movies that weren't under the Tello banner, because again, that would have involved my business partners who are running it, and I really wanted to have control over the story and over the IP, I created A Baker Production so I can. That's the banner that I'm making movies under.
Got it. Now I understand completely. I'm with you 100%.
Good. Yes.
And then Diva Box TV is sort of the streaming arm of A Baker, right?
Correct.
That's what it's going to be. Okay, got it. Beautiful. I have noticed that you have a penchant for holiday rom-coms. Again, some of your films, Season of Love, Merry and Gay, Christmas at the Ranch, I Hate New Year's, just to name a few. What is it that's drawn you to holiday rom-coms, and are any of your stories autobiographical?
So I think what drew me to holiday rom-coms was the fact that it was so unapologetically straight. All these tropes, all these things, and they were becoming so popular.
Yeah.
And, the lesbian and queer female community were sort of like on the edge of their seat, waiting for their story to be told, waiting for all those wonderful, fun, cheesy tropes to be with two women instead of a man and a woman.
Right.
And so that's when, we kind of came in and we were like, let's do the first one where there's, and the gay characters had either been part of an ensemble or side characters. So we really did the first one where it was like, these are the leads. It's two women and here's the story. And we used all the same tropes, and the tropes cut across, gender. And, and so I think because it's becoming such an institution and there wasn't representation. So it was really a blue ocean situation where it was like, no one was really doing it. So let's jump in. And now what we found is we get all this mainstream press that our projects would never normally get. But because everyone does a list each year of all the LGBTQ holiday rom-coms, we've been listed in publications that as an indie movie with our budget, you would never be listed in. Right. And so that's really exciting and just really cool to kind of get that kind of recognition and be listed amongst, the Netflix movies, the Hallmark, the Lifetime. And, there was last year, it was on Christmas at the Ranch was on Tello. There we were listed right among the big streamers. And I'm hoping for the same thing this year for divaboxoffice.tv, that because Marion Gay is coming out, because it's one of the few LGBTQ holiday rom-coms, and I have an amazing publicist that will get listed. And so I think that's why it's just, they're so fun. They're just so fun. Yeah,
I love the trailers. The trailers are fun and definitely indie trailers, but fun. You can get a sense of the character. It is, I don't know if ironic's the right word. I don't want to fall into a Alanis Morissette bear trap for my language, but it feels ironic that now you're doing something risky by making a rom-com because of the way that sort of tent poles have taken over theaters. There isn't a lot of risk being put into a rom-com anymore, even if it has Jennifer Lopez and Matthew McConaughey in it or Owen Wilson. Yeah. It's still a little bit dangerous, it feels like, for the movie industry in general, especially if the destination, the first exploitation window is going to be theater. So now here you are doing sort of riskier films just based on, genre alone. I think that's kind of cool. I don't want to forget the second part of that question, which is, are any of these stories autobiographical?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. Not straight up autobiographical. There's a lot of, Season of Love, definitely not. That one was written by an amazing writer named Kat Trammell. And, those are like just super unique, wonderful stories. I Hate New Year's is based on, it's two people running around Nashville on New Year's evening. One person's trying to find her ex-girlfriend. No, I've never done that, but I have run around Nashville on New Year's, hopping from bar to bar and seeing some amazing live music. And in a car that's, we ended up getting a couple of years in a row getting a limo. And so that was definitely sort of like, what I did one New Year's, I just went around and went to different bars and had fun. And so it was sort of like, okay, well, let's have someone chasing and trying to find someone at all these places. So that's the piece of I Hate New Year's that's autobiographical. And Christmas at the Ranch, the piece that is very much me with Christmas at the Ranch is how close I am to my family. So Meemaw is a representation of my Granny Ruth. And I'm very, I'm close to my sister and we don't live in the same town. And so the siblings in their relationship. So I think that anytime you have a positive family representation, that's definitely comes from my family and how close we all are. And marrying gay also has like these, you'll see they have these two super fun meddling moms. And I think, again, that sort of warm, supportive family comes from my family. And then some of the dialogue between the two lead characters is not strictly picked up from conversations that I had with some of my exes, but they were inspired by. So when I would think about the dialogue and some of the conflict and the feelings around things, I would think of some of my ex-girlfriends. So it's again, not word for word, but there's a lot of influence, I should say, in all of it.
Yeah. And that means to me that the story's just going to be told better. You know, that's all that means to me, is like, now you're invested, you've got skin in the game in terms of the storytelling and the filmmaking, because, you know, I always go back to this quote by Lauryn Hill where she said, everybody knows how the art should look and feel in their mind. And the trick is trying to get it to be identical, to mirror it in the real world. And you just keep carving away at the art until it resembles the thing you thought was so compelling in your mind. Right. Same can be said of your ideas, you know, an idea that won't leave you alone. You know, if it's looking the way it's supposed to look, you know, if it's operating the way you thought about it in that sort of genesis of and development of the idea. And when you're not hitting that, it's really frustrating as an entrepreneur, for sure.
Yeah.
I heard an opinion you gave on the Making Movies is Hard podcast. Shout out to those guys. About short films. They're not that they're dead, but that they are maybe from a financial standpoint, a mistake on arrival. And I heard you mention Quibi as well, just like, you know, Quibi, you know, massive failure from a year or two ago, you know, it was a pandemic baby, lot of money put into it and it didn't pan out. But I think the thinking around that financial decision and that business decision was watching TikTok, watching Instagram, and watching YouTube. YouTube has just doubled down on short content. They've just doubled down on it. Like, it's what they want you to post now. So as filmmakers, how do we make sense of the fact that we can make a short film and it not really be an advantageous path for ROI and financial success, yet we see that every single day people are basically making short films and putting them on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and some percentage of them are making money doing so.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, you know, I think my thought process around the short film commentary was kind of more around like investors and it's that if you're going after investors, short film is not the place to have them put their money. But if you want to do crowdfunding, if you want to save your pennies and, you know, go and make a short, you can absolutely make money on it if you get enough views on, you know, on YouTube or, you know, any of the other AVODs that are probably looking for content as well. There's absolute space that you can make money. But I would say it's dangerous if you're going after investors and you have a short film to try and make money. I think short films are fantastic because they're a great learning, training ground, proving ground for a concept, to know who your crew could be and should be. It's a great place for you to make mistakes. I mean, I did 10 years of web series content. That's what, and I was putting it up on Tello. So, I mean, that was a way, you know, and I was able to make more because of subscriber revenue that was coming in. But I never, ever had an investor come in until I was making a feature.
Yeah.
So I think that's the space. I think, and even, I know people who did crowdfunding campaign, raised $7,000 to make their short. We did the festival route. The film did really well on the festival route. It did get, a small distribution on an AVOD and made some money. But yeah, so I think the commentary around that was like, don't do shorts. Just it's not a place for, I think it's a dangerous spot for investor money.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like we don't even call it investment. So when we've made shorts, we just call it a donation. Like we have no,
yes.
like we're an angel to you. Like we're not even an angel investor. We're just somebody who's going to fund your short film because we want to be long on you as talent, right? Like, so we think your stock is trading at $2 a share now, but it's going to trade at $200 a share in 10 years. So we'll give you some money to make a short film and see if you prove our concept correct. I also think YouTube should change its monetization standard. I'm sure YouTube doesn't think it should because it's doing just fine and it is pro YouTube. But we had a filmmaker on, Kaylee Bailey, who has a film on YouTube that has 17 million views, but it can't get monetization because she herself doesn't have 10,000 plus subscribers. And
what?
Right. And so I think their monetization should be based on view count, not subscriber count. Yeah. And so what they did to protect themselves against random virality, they said, okay, you might have a viral video, but we don't have to pay you unless, you have a base of followers that can prove that X amount of people are going to see your video, even though it's viral, so that we can take that data back to our advertisers. And so I think it's really difficult because you might make a beautiful short film that a lot of people watch, but if you don't have that subscriber base, you can't monetize. So just a pet peeve of mine. And then I think the other thing too is, and maybe this is what Katzenberg didn't understand, to your point, is that there's two different types of films being made in the short space. So one is the narrative short feature where you're using filmmaking tactics that are tried and true. You're trying to tell a story from beginning to end. I mean, that's a classic short film. And what we see happening in short space on TikTok, IG, YouTube, et cetera, are really comedy skits. They're not, they're not films. They are short, but they're really just comedy bits. I think that's why one of their moonshots was to buy the rights to Punk'd. And because it felt like, Punk'd is just a show full of these short comedy skits that people will laugh at and are funny. And we'll have Chance the Rapper host it and it'll be great. Their timing on Chance the Rapper was really bad because he had bad PR at that time in his own community. So they didn't know that, right? That's where you're doing something and you're not authentic. So you didn't even know what the score was, right? So just a couple of thoughts about short content. You're sitting in the Delta Lounge in LAX right now. You do split time between Los Angeles and Nashville. I did the same thing before the pandemic quite a bit. What advantages do you derive from each film community? If you could compare and contrast Nashville to film in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So my very first projects I shot in LA. And because I was like, well, everyone's there and these are super indie and they were shorts. And so I could kind of fly, under a lot of the radar needed that for insurance and film permits and, all those things. But as soon as I did my first feature, oh boy, the cost went way up for all the things to film in LA. And so that's when I was I looked at my numbers and I thought, I need to look at Nashville, which is also where I have my home. It's a right to work state, which makes the union piece much more, for indies, much more cost effective. The locations are so much cheaper and workman's comp is so much cheaper. So, I I cover, I have a safe set. I haven't, I have all the things that you need to, but it's just significantly less expensive in Nashville. And now that I've built what I call my film family, I have found people who will work for my indie rate, who just all love each other, who love making content. And because I can get so many pages done in a day, my shoots, instead of, a lot of indie features are 20 some odd days, which is still a short time. Mine are 12. So I can get every single one of the features that you have mentioned, were all shot in 12 days. I think, Season of Love was 14, excuse me. But all the other ones.
Close enough to the whole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that makes a bit, so I'm not wasting someone's time for a very small rate. Like, they can afford in between their gigs that pay them a lot more to come and play with me. And like I said, they all love each other so much, and they get along, and they love making these projects. So, and it took me a lot of years to find my film family in Nashville, but that's kind of where I am now. And I'm really, really lucky to have an incredibly supportive group. And when I fly people in from LA, they all love coming to Nashville. They're just like, oh my gosh, we love Nashville. Yes, I want to go. So Nashville is a very attractive city for people to want to visit as well, which is really nice. So that's what I derive from Nashville, is just people who are passionate. I have my group there. We can get locations for cheaper. Workman's comp, all the insurance pieces, SAG, they're all less expensive there. And then LA, listen, the reason I was here is because I was taking meetings with people in the industry last night. I just had this amazing dinner. I'm looking at getting a movie picked up and financed, and it has a very big food component, and the chef was in town. So I had a catered dinner and a wine tasting, all cooked by this award-winning, amazing chef who is also in the movie. And I had, a producer who is an Oscar-winning producer. I had financiers who make movies. I had, distributors. There were 12 people. We had an absolute blast. That's what I'm able to do in LA. Take the meetings with the people who can finance things, who can get things distributed. My sales agent is here. And so it's really important to have face-to-face, in my mind, with people. And so I tend to be out in Los Angeles. It's about, and what it's ending up to be is every other month for about 10 days. And I'm really lucky that I have amazing friends with these great houses that happen to have extra rooms that they're kind enough to let me stay in. So, I'm not spending like a ton of money on a hotel or an Airbnb. And, so again, it's that indie mentality, right? Like, I need to be in LA. How can I scrappy do it? And, get in front of people and make sure that they remember who I am.
Look at you, Christin Baker. Whining and dining and schmoozing people.
Man, it was so, Chris, I got to tell you, I felt very fancy. Like, I was like,
I'm jealous I wasn't there now.
Dude, I was like, what up? And like my friend whose house hosted it does mezzanine financing and is just an amazing guy, and like helped me bring together people. And it was just incredible. And we had a blast. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. But it's stuff like that that's like so cool, I've
always loved the term mezzanine financing, because all that happened was people started using the word bridge financing too much. So to differentiate, they changed to mezzanine. And it's the same thing. It's like, you perspire, I sweat.
It is. Yeah, exactly. You're right. That's
you
a good
run,
way
I sprint.
That's right. Yeah, we had an LA.
We did this a little differently.
Semantics, yeah. But yeah, we had an LA screening the other night, and I was able to invite a bunch of people, and so it's just stuff like that I think is important to do. And since I'm a member of the Academy and the PGA like you, there's all these amazing FYC events that we get invited to. So I try and come up for those as well.
I want to go to the Christmas party on the 30th for the PGA. I don't know if I'm going to make it out there. I'd love to go. Maybe.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, maybe I'll talk to you offline about that. Possibly. If you were going to schmooze, like you had to schmooze somebody from LA in Nashville.
I'm so bad. Go ahead.
Where would you take them?
If I had to schmooze. Broadway. I would take them down to, because there's over, like, at any given time, there's 50 live bands playing down on Broadway. You just walk down and they're all live bands. And so what you can do is like, and I know the time to go, because there can be like real, I mean, I love Broadway and Nashville, but man, they can get drunk and debaucherous.
It's crazy.
And so
it's Times Square, but so, for like, I don't know, Southern
country
people. Yeah.
Country music. Yeah. So, you know, I know the bars to go to that have like, in my mind, the best bands, and going at a time that's like reasonable, like a Tuesday, like a Monday or a Tuesday at 2:00, you can see some of the most amazing music. It's not wall to wall packed. You can really enjoy it. You can sit in the spot for a little bit. So I would definitely, I'm also a member of Soho House in Nashville. That's just fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
we'll go to Soho together soon.
Let's go to Soho. That'd be amazing. Yeah. So I take them to Soho House because it's a really lovely atmosphere. And then and that's close to downtown Nashville. And then definitely take them down to Broadway and hit some of the just classic places that are just steeped in country history. So that's how I'd schmooze. I love that idea. Those are all wonderful recommendations. And I just screened the Leonard Cohen documentary there at Soho House. That thing will hit you in the throat about 6 different times. And they do a good job with those screens. They're not movies you can see, everywhere. So kudos to the folks in London that run Soho House. Tell me about this script writing contest that you ran, and I think this is genius. So you ran a script writing contest to finance your movies. Let's talk about it. How did it work? Well, it's not. Yeah, no, the script writing contest doesn't finance the movies. It just unearths. It doesn't finance the movie. I mean, we don't make that much on it. It just affords us the ability to find really cool ideas.
I was going to say, because I thought it was like I thought it had a double-edged sword effect where you were raising capital, but then you also got to find your next movie.
I mean, it raises a little bit of capital, but I think we charged $25 for a pitch. I mean, so it wasn't, we're not getting 1,000 pitches, which wouldn't even fund a movie, right? I mean, even if it's like $25 a pitch, we got 1,000 pitches, that's $25,000. That's not going to fund a movie.
Yeah.
But
not a great one.
Right. And the reason we charge is really because we want people who are serious. And I think anyone who's going to put 25, and it's a lot of time on my part and someone else's part who I need to pay to kind of go through the pitches. But yeah, so it was just a way for us to get some ideas, and also kind of lift up people in the community who weren't professional writers. And so we ended up getting 3 great scripts from 3 amazing writers. And now they have a credit and they have, something to point to so that if they want to keep writing, and proof that like, hey man, you have a good idea. So it's hopefully giving them a little confidence. So that's why it's called Pitch to Production. Pitch to
Production. Okay.
Pitch to Production. So, and we've run that contest for web series as well. And, we haven't made most of them that have won, but we do give $100 to the winners. And then and if they're serious about wanting to make it, we'll kind of, look at either helping them make it or, again, if it's these scripts, we'll go and find the funding for it. So yeah, we got the 3 from our Pitch to Production holiday rom-com.
Yeah, I think that's great. It actually does end up having sort of a knock-on effect too, because it's like you have the type of film you're looking for, script you're looking for. So you're giving a platform to people whose scripts might not have a platform otherwise as well. So
exactly.
I love that. What can we expect from Diva Box Office TV?
So my big, hairy, audacious goal around divaboxoffice.tv is to make it a hub for original lesbian and queer content. So, we're going to have licensed from, older content that is out there in the world that people know and love. We're going to have that on divaboxoffice.tv. but we're also going to have some fantastic originals that you can't find anywhere else. And then eventually I want to make enough with subscriptions and rent or buy revenue that we're able to do 4 original pieces a year, 4 original features, or maybe TV shows, like maybe a series. And then I want to be able to fund other lesbian content to the tune of 250, 500,000 a year, so that we can support these stories that, you know, we want to be like a mini, you know, Netflix or Amazon that are funding original content, not that just I make and direct, but that other people make and direct well. And even putting like how you support shorts, you know, funding $10,000 towards someone's short that comes on the site. So, you know, I want to grow this big enough. And you know, the thing about Tello is I was never able to quite get it big enough to do for a year and support the other pieces that I wanted to. And I'm coming into divaboxoffice.tv, you know, smarter. I've made the mistakes. I'm going after investors right now. And the focus is, you know, how can your seed money help us make these 4 originals and then get to a point where people are just, you know, the subscriber base is large enough, the rent or buys are large enough that we're just like funding some amazing content for the community.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Tosca Musk is doing with Passion Flicks. And, you know, actually she does a lot of the rom-coms too. I don't know, splinter in your mind kind of thing. Maybe there's a partnership down the line between you two amazing women, and you combine
I love a good
forces.
Partnership, man.
Yeah.
Love it. I mean, yes, right? Like, you know, all boats rise with the tide, you know, and the more smart minds you can get in the room, you just can't go wrong with that. You know what I mean?
How does the rev share work? So if I had a film on, you know, Diva Box Office TV, how would that rev share work if I'm a filmmaker?
Yeah, so we actually just right now, we're doing straight up licensing. So depending on the territory, depending on how old the movie is, how many stars you have, we're doing anywhere from $500 to $2,000 for just a straight up licensing fee for 18 months. Got it.
Very, very good. And this doesn't have to be a long answer, but what qualifies a film to be a lesbian or queer film? Does it have to be pro-tags or can there just be a storyline?
You know, it really depends on how big the storyline is in the movie. So we really want the leads, if at all possible. But if it's sort of like a family drama or a family comedy and one couple is the lesbian couple, we would consider it.
Got it.
So it really just, it just depends, really. But the lesbian can't die in the end. And if it's like a love triangle, that's like a bisexual love triangle, the person needs to end up with the lesbian in the end.
Got it. Okay. Got it. I've never heard the phrase "the lesbian can't die." I'm going to write that down in quotes. Yeah.
There's a big problem. Yeah. If you look at the hashtag representation matters in 2016, there were like all these lesbian characters killed off on television.
Right. Yeah. This is like one step beyond the Bechdel test.
I know.
Yeah. I like this. What are the 2 best pieces of advice you've received in your career so far, and who did they come from?
So that's 2. I was meeting with the producer one time, and I was telling him kind of some of my frustrations and, you know, like, how like, I at the time, like I wasn't, you know, nothing was like really hitting mainstream wise. And he just looked at me and he said, just keep doing what you're doing. He said, you're making a difference and it's going to happen, and just keep doing what you're doing and don't give up. And it was like, that's the thing I needed to hear at that time. And I was like, you know what, I do, okay, like, yeah, I do need to keep. And it was a straight white dude, you know, and he was like, you're just doing important things. And so keep going. So that was really nice. And I think, you know, it's not necessarily anything that like they said, but I just know that, I feel so much love and support from my parents and my extended family that that gives me the courage and the confidence to know that I can pursue what I'm doing, and I have support from the people who like love me the most.
Do you know of any optimal way to find a mentor? Did you have a mentor and if so, how did you find them? Yeah,
so I had my just like sometimes in the most bizarre ways. I think my first mentor was Nancy Lee Myatt, who, you know, really just kind of showed me what it's like to be how to be on a set. And that was just through, you know, networking and meeting, and she's a lesbian and fantastic writer. But the strangest mentor I actually found in a Delta lounge. And there was something, it was this guy, and I looked at him and I was like, you know, I need to talk to this guy. And I didn't know why, but my intuition told me. And he had gone up to go to the bathroom, and he goes, hey, would you mind watching my laptop and my phone and my stuff while I go to the bathroom? And I said, yes, if someone comes to steal your stuff, which is more important, the laptop or the phone? And I just kind of made a joke, and he like stopped for a minute, and he was like, the laptop. I was like, okay, cool. And of course nothing happened. But when he came back, it was just that opening to strike up a conversation. And he worked in the medical field, and he raised money from VC companies and like biotech. And he was like, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a lesbian filmmaker. And he's this like super conservative Mormon white dude. And I just said to him, like, can we stay in contact? I was like, and he ended up becoming my mentor in how I pitch to investors. He was a huge help and a huge part, and like talked to me for an hour, gave me the tips, gave me like strategies he uses, and was like, sent me one of his pitch decks, and was for like a cancer drug. But then I was able to kind of look at it and formulate my pitch deck based on his pitch deck. And then he reviewed mine, and I did a practice pitch. And so it was just, sometimes you don't know when and where you're going to meet people, but I would say, you know, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition.
Yeah. And you've been successful with it. You've had investors that stick with you and roll their ROI into your next films. And so kudos to you for having the courage to just be affable and not be judgmental and not be concerned with being judged either. When you mentioned what he asked you to do, I immediately thought about the Larry David situation he put you in, because the question is if someone leaves you with their laptop and phone, what is your time obligation? Like, can they be gone an hour?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was the lounge, and he was going to the bathroom. So yeah. I knew like, it was okay.
If he was gone an hour, Christin, would you have taken his phone and laptop with you, or would you have just left it there?
I would have left it.
Really?
And I just put a note, was like, I had to get to my airplane. It was here when I left. I would have left it out.
I would have wrote a post-it note that says, man. Do not steal.
Like,
do not steal.
Do not steal. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Totally.
Yeah. It reminds me of this old parable about this old man that dies, and he's a printer, right? He's a print shop, and he gives it to his son, and the son's like running the business, and way in the back, he sees a box that says "Do not open," and he wants to honor his father who just died, so he doesn't open the box. Right? He does the anti-Brad Pitt in Seven. And he doesn't open the box. And so, but it's eating at him, just like that idea you talked about earlier in the conversation. It's like it's eating at him, this box. So 5 years goes by, And he finally just like, he breaks down. His will is depleted, Christin. And he goes to the back and he decides he's going to open the box. Okay. And he takes the lid off, opens the box. And what's inside is a bunch of labels that say, do not open.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, so I think the point of that is that there's a thing that's in the box that we fear, and then we open the box and find out there was nothing to be scared of, or that we had like the complete wrong intuition about what would be in the box anyway. And we were more or less projecting our feelings onto the situation versus the other way around. Yeah. Anyway, which creatives do you most admire and want to emulate? And what do they do from a technical and skill standpoint that makes their work stand apart in your mind?
Yeah. So I think I really appreciate Patty Jenkins. And her first Wonder Woman, I think, was inspired. And I think the way she directed that with the humor and the strong, female component and like these fantastic action sequences. I think the first Wonder Woman is phenomenal, and I love what she did with it. And so I think, I'm kind of bummed that she's not taking on one of the Star Warses, or she was supposed to. And then, so I would have been really interested to see what she did with that. I think Greta Gerwig's storytelling is phenomenal. I think what she was able to do with Little Women and the way she told that story, with a new and different take on this classic that we've seen over and over again, I think was absolutely inspired. So I love kind of her thought process.
Yeah, two giants right there. Yeah.
And I think my third, I think Taika Waititi, his Jojo Rabbit, I think is one of the greatest pieces of film ever. And I think Thor Ragnarok is the best marvel of any of them. Obviously none of these are perfect filmmakers, right? Like, we're not perfect filmmakers. We can't hit it out of the park every single time. But I think just the way those three look at storytelling, humor, and just their cinematic vision, I very much admire them.
Yeah, Jojo Rabbit's one of those movies that does this incredibly rare thing where your heart swells and your eyes water at the same time.
It's like you're getting punched in the gut and then laughing.
Yeah. Phenomenal movie. By the way, Wonder Woman was huge in my house when I was growing up. My sister loved Wonder Woman, like the TV show, which I'm dating myself now. But just this idea that a woman can wrap you in lasso and make you tell the truth. The audacity.
Right? Totally.
You don't want to hear the truth from me. Like, I think if women knew the type of depravity that goes on in a man's mind on a regular basis, a sane man, not an insane or violent one or even a weird one, just a regular guy, you wouldn't want to know the truth. Right. You'd drop that lasso.
Right. La, 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 la. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the biggest creative and business mistakes you've seen newcomers making? So I know you have a non-mercenary crew, but I'm sure you run into some people who are new to the business, either in the PA space or just around you in filmmaking.
I think not knowing where to spend the money can be a big problem. And I think some people really push you to want to spend it in places that don't, trying to figure out where the best ROI is. Yeah. And I think that's where you can do that in a short. You can really figure out where's the best ROI. And that's why shorts are really important. I also think some filmmakers go into filmmaking not focused on getting the investor's money back. Some people I think kind of are like, they have money and it's okay if they don't get it back. They don't really care that much.
Oh my God.
And I think you have to let investors know That's the most important thing. And you have to know that that's the second most important thing. I always tell my investors, I said, I have two goals when I make a movie. Number one is to make a really great movie, tell a great story that has a positive impact in any way on the community. And the second thing is to get your money back.
Yeah, it's so true. You'll never get it out of them, but I've been lucky enough to be a fly on the wall and just here's the sentiment of some of these filmmakers, which is like, I just want to make my thing. If they don't make their money back, they're like, like almost demonizing the person who helped you make the thing that you made in some cases. It's a really unusual defense mechanism, if that's what it is, or take around not, making an ROI-able film. So I thank you for saying that. If you had 1 month to teach someone how to direct a film, what would be the first 3 things you teach them? I know you've done some adjunct professoring.
Yeah.
What would be the first 3 things you teach somebody who is net new to directing?
Gosh. I think and again, I don't know how you teach this, but I'll tell you kind of the things that I think are really important. I think number one, the director sets the tone on any film. And I think making sure every single, if at all possible, every single crew person on an indie movie feels valued and is thanked for coming back to set each day. I think having that person understand everyone is there for the same purpose and to make a movie, and how to make everyone feel good about being there. I think that the second piece, I'm very much an actor's director. So I love working with the actors. It's my favorite thing in the whole entire world. I leave the camera angles and movement and all that to my DP, who I trust implicitly.
Yes.
So I would say to them, figure out what kind of director are you? Are you an actor's director? Are you more going for the cinematic look? Are you going for the framing? And there's not a wrong thing, but I would say, what are you? And then, really, and if you're an actor's director, thinking about how to work best with the actors to get the performance that you want from them. What are some small things that you can do, that create that scene and that performance? And then I think the second thing is, again, kind of teaching someone, knowing when you can slow down and knowing when you need to kind of pick up the pace, understanding so that you're not forcing people into 17-hour days, 15-hour days.
Right. Getting people into Friday days. So for those listening at home, number one is set the tone of the set. Number 2 is connect with the actors to get the best performances possible. And number 3 is understanding pacing. You heard it from Christin Baker first. And I've learned so much. I'm sure you've been valuable to the audience as well. And you've also
You're so sweet.
Thank you. Generous with your time, hanging out at a lounge, giving us a little bit of your time. I only have a few more questions and I'll get you out of here. I think you're the right person to ask this question. Has Google and Bing and other search engines, have they solved the false connection between LGBTQIA content and porn?
They have not. I still have that problem today.
Where did that connection start? Educate me. Why is there a connection between?
Chris, if I could tell you, I could help Google and Bing solve it. We still cannot. Bing will not let us use. We have to fight every single time to use the search term lesbian movie or lesbian film. They flag it because they say it's porn. And all you have to do is go to Tello it was Tello and then eventually divaboxoffice.tv to know that's not what we're making.
Right.
And obviously the porn sites are kind of at fault for this. And I don't know how they sneak all that stuff in, but they do. And it's absolutely infuriating because it has such a negative impact on our ability to market to the community. It's absolutely infuriating.
I'm a huge free speech proponent, and I'm a proponent of artists. But I will say that porn is one of the last bastions of just overt racism and misogyny, because they can actually put the racism and misogyny and bigotry in the title, which is the reason you want to click on it. And because of that, you suffer as a filmmaker trying to, like, basically what Bing and Google are telling you is that you can't take your advantage, right? Your blue ocean. And by the way, for those who didn't know what Christin meant by blue ocean earlier, blue ocean is a place without competitors versus a red ocean, which is a place that's bloody. The water's bloody with competitors. So you have very few competitors in this space, but you can't use your competitive advantage without being connected to porn.
Right.
Because, and so it's almost like they're saying, hey, just say it's a rom-com then. But then you lose your branding edge, right?
It's, like I said, it's incredibly frustrating, just incredibly frustrating. And I wish there was some smart AI way to figure it out. But
well, the truth is there is a smart AI way to do it, because the AI can review your content in seconds and see that there's no sex scenes. They can actually identify body parts, things like that. But the question is, will they deploy those things? And is it a big enough problem to get on their radar? So sounds like we need a petition and a letter written to Eric Schmidt or something. And
I fight it every time.
Yeah, we gotta figure it out. I know it's important for you personally to serve the LGBTQ community with those genre specific films, but are there any stories that you'd love to tell that aren't LGBTQ?
Yeah, I've written a few that are not LGBTQ. I think that does tend to be a lot of what I have, but I do have a few stories that might have, lesbians as side characters, or, I do actually have a Christmas one that doesn't have any lesbians in it at all. So, it's definitely out there. If someone, wants to hire me or says, hey, do you have a this? Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to read any stuff you have anyway. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, sure.
Can you tell this audience and myself where we can find you on social media, on the internet, and where we can even see some of your work, even though you've repeated that sort of ad nauseum already?
Yeah. Well, so here's the cool thing. I Hate New Year's, I believe, is on Amazon, and it's on Tello Films. Season of Love is on Tello Films. Christmas at the Ranch is currently on Tubi. It might be in some other places. I, social media wise, am Christin, Christin, Tello, on Instagram and Twitter. And on Facebook, you can find me at divaboxoffice.tv. And then there's also Diva Box Office on both Twitter and Instagram as well.
All right. Expect some follows here on Twitter. I'm already following you on Instagram. And everyone in the audience, please do likewise. Yep. Love it.
Thank you.
Please support Christin Baker and all that she does. We'll end on this. What in the world is bubble waffle ice cream?
Oh, you can find that in London. It's amazing. And they take a waffle and they make it imagine a waffle cone, but make it thick and squishy. And then they take ice cream and it's warm. So they take ice cream and then put it in there. And oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's incredible.
So it doesn't feel gross in your mouth, like when you have that squishy waffle and then you have that cold squishy ice cream? Or
I like kind of a cold squishy waffle, but it doesn't. If you eat it fast enough, you get these two fantastic textures.
Oh yeah,
it's just really, really lovely.
It feels like the key to that is the same key to chicken and waffles, which if you go to a bad chicken and waffle place, what they give you is bad waffles because they're like, well, what do we need a good waffle for? It's just there to soak up the good chicken juice and the syrup. No, you have to make that waffle incredible. And my guess is if you want bubble waffle ice cream to be great, that waffle has to be strong enough to stand on its own, but yet better united with ice cream.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I think it's, like I said, I'm a big fan of the sort of like the cold ice cream with the kind of melty waffle. So it was amazing.
Well, not as amazing as you, Christin. This has been a blast. It's been so much fun. I really do hope that we get together the next time you're in Nashville.
Let's do it.
I'm happy to go wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do. And I am hoping for a safe flight for you. And
thank you.
Yep. And I'm hoping we can do a round 2 at some point in the future and even work together creatively. So
I would love that. I would love that so much. And yes, we'll meet up. We'll talk all things creative. And I'm sure there's some synergies for you and I as well, and great content.
So many synergies. Christin, be good and talk to you soon.
Thank you, friend.
Take care.